We're going to share an impromptu chat we had with Mbwana Alliy. Now, Mbwana is the founder and managing partner at Savannah Fund, an Africa-focused technology venture capital fund that runs both an accelerator and seed investments in e-commerce, gaming, education technology, and social networking. So we caught up with Mbwana at AfriCoin Joburg, and initially he and I were chatting alone, and then Tefo joined in, and the conversation just got more and more interesting, and we just thought, we must definitely share the whole thing. We thought we might just get a few sound bites for you guys. It just got so much fun.
Yeah, it's a bit long, guys, but there are loads of great insights, so you should enjoy this. And we also put him on the spot regarding the recent Angani saga, and he's very honest and open about it.
Okay, so without any further ado, here it is.
Photography enthusiast. What else would surprise me about you?
I like hiking, and I'm a recent botanist.
Okay.
I discovered a national park in Tanzania that's called Kitolo Plateau, which is a highland plateau with flowers on it, unique orchids. So I extended my photography and started doing botanist, just taking photos of cataloging flowers. Sorry, because I realized that in that parts of Africa there are places where there are species that have not been discovered yet. So I just thought that's pretty cool. I'm an adventurous. I like to find cool stuff. Just like startups, I like to find cool startups. It also extends to other parts of my life. I like to discover cool places that no one else has been to. And Kitolo Plateau, maybe I'm giving it away now, but they do need the tourism because it's very low. But it's an amazing place. So I like travel a lot. Travel is, yeah.
And so we were talking offline while I was trying to get this Mac to work. So all of you Mac haters, they do stutter sometimes, folks.
Rarely, but they do. Yeah. Very rarely, but they do.
And they do. And so I had, while I was busy restarting the computer so that we could get this conversation on the road, you were telling me all the podcasts you listen to. And I'm offended, sir, that you haven't playlisted the African Tech Roundup or African Tech Conversations.
Yes, I've been seeing it. And I've actually not. Is it available on Stitcher?
It's on. It should be. In fact, yes.
I'm going to add it now. So, because I have my phone on me, because that's my primary podcast device. And you can see here, I'm showing you. On the front of my phone is Stitcher, right in the middle. It's the most middle like app. Like I can't miss it, right? Like I'm not having to flip through the phone, and you can tell a man's iPhone by the front homepage screen.
Absolutely, you can.
I think you guys talked about that once, didn't you not?
Well, yeah, definitely you can.
I think once. I think you emailed me or someone emailed me from your group saying that. Can you tell us what could you send us a picture of your homepage? But on my homepage, Stitcher is number one.
How come not iTunes, surprisingly? I mean,
Stitcher just works really well. I can resume the podcast. I can take it offline easily. So I have it set, for example, when on Wi-Fi, take everything offline. So, for example, now when I look for a Tech Roundup, Africa Tech Roundup, right?
African Tech Roundup.
It should come up and automatically, do the first 3 episodes or add it here. There it is.
And of course we're on there.
Oh yeah, look at all these great podcasts I should listen to. Safaricom becomes the latest mobile provider. Subi Angani, which I know about a lot. We're going to talk about that.
We're going to talk about that because
and Rebecca, yep. So now it's on my thing. It's going to be downloaded, and I'm going to be listening to it because the next flight I get onto, because I travel a lot, nothing worse than a 16-hour flight to SF from Africa. Guess what I'm going to be listening to? It's all these podcasts that are on my phone, including this Tech Roundup. So
we're going to hold you to that, actually. So well done. Tell me about this crazy life of yours. You're obviously part of the new wave of venture capital hitting African shores, except you're sort of returning home, and you've decided to...
I'm glad you brought that up because, it's very easy to burn yourself out. Entrepreneurs or venture capitalists, because, when you're starting a fund, it's like anything. You're giving birth to an entity. And I laugh when I'm here in South Africa because, every other person moving to Cape Town, I'm like, no, I want Joburg. Like, Joburg is like cool. Like, I want to see more of the action. But I'm always suspicious when people are moving to Cape Town from Joburg because it's a lifestyle decision. But are they going to be as effective as they are when I met them in Joburg?
And given that you've invested in firms that are based in Cape Town, and you're spending a lot more time in Joburg here, what's your sense of the scene between the two places?
So actually, I'll quickly say that compared with Nairobi, right? So I'm Tanzanian, and Tanzanians have like a more calm demeanor than Kenyans, but I'm very hyper Tanzanian. I'm very different because I was educated in the West Coast, and so when I come to Kenya, I love it. It's high energy, but I still need my Tanzania roots. So that's part of the reason I moved. And so Joburg and Cape Town reminds me of the same thing. Like, I can see myself spending 3 or 4 years in Joburg, burning out almost, or moving for a lifestyle decision and go to Cape Town. But I'd be worried that you have to be able to easily get back and forth. So the best thing about Joburg and Cape Town is you can actually have it both. Now, how many flights a day do you have between Joburg and Cape Town? Like, I think 15, 16? So, like, it's between Nairobi and Dar es Salaam, it's maybe 8 or 9. I'm moving to Arusha in northern Tanzania, so I can drive up to Nairobi and I can fly down with Fastjet 3 times a day to Dar and then get to South Africa easy as well. So this is about positioning me to be closer to Southern Africa, but also still close to Nairobi. And also, I might, by some nationalistic chance, invest in a Tanzanian company, which I've not done yet, out of 21 investments.
Sam, your homies must be a little sore about that.
I'm actually concerned that Magufuli will call me and be like, what will Magufuli do? Invest in lean Tanzanian startups. So, like, I probably will have to in the end invest. But I've been saying stuff in Tanzania. It's just that Kenya can suck a lot of energy out of you. I mean, Kenya is Kenya. It's great for many reasons, but one of them is also it's very, very dynamic with a lot of people coming in. So I'll give you an example. Like yesterday, someone called me, a Swedish entrepreneur, called me saying like, "Hey, are you in Nairobi?" I'm like, "No, I'm in Joburg." Like, "I'd like to pick your brain." I'm like, "No, you can't pick my brain. Like, I just can't physically do informational interviews with every wannabe entrepreneur or entrepreneur who wants to understand a certain industry in Kenya because it's just." I guess I understand how Eric feels now a little bit because he plays that role a lot in Nairobi, like, kind of like the person who everyone goes to and asks for advice. But I can't do that. I'm an venture capitalist. We have 21 companies now. I have to help them. So I have to step off that role of like educating everyone, right?
And it's interesting.
That's also part of the reason why I'm moving to Tanzania is that so that I can be more objective in the Pan-Africa. I'm a Pan-Africanist, right? And so,
So tell me about you mentioned Eric. I imagine you speaking about Eric Hirschman.
Yes, Eric Hirschman. He's a part of the fund, but also runs Brick is he runs that as COO, founder of Ushahidi and iHub as well. So that whole ecosystem he's involved in.
What do you make of the hoi polloi surrounding the issues at I almost said Andile. At Angani.
Yes, so it was actually I cut my trip short. I was meant to be in Nigeria for longer and go to Accra to help, with Africoin, there. But I as soon as I heard, because I was in the US fundraising, which I do a lot of, and I heard about the story through actually blogs like yourselves and others, and I was like, okay, this is bad. And I got all the emails as well from the board and the company. So, but I really didn't, you never get a sense of what's really going on. So I actually made it a priority to come back to Nairobi early, before this trip as well to Joburg, and talk to Fariz. He's actually the only person I talked to so far, like face to face in a coffee, like understand, because I just noticed that was the bit that I was missing the most. Gotten like the board, because Eric's on the board, I'd gotten that communication. I'd seen what the PR, I heard from customers even. For example, Sendi was one of the customers, which is one of our other investments, right? Latest investments in Kenya, Sendi, which is Safaricom and invested as well, and they were using Angani. And also some big clients were affected as well. So I wanted to understand what happened. And my conclusion is that, and you probably saw this on Savannah Fund Twitter, as I did a poll on, are African startups ready for governance, actually? Are they ready for, because when you raise a serious round with institutional investors, you typically have to form a board. And actually, the accelerator where, we spend a lot of our time, and people think it's a joke, right? Oh, accelerator, you're just throwing away money. No, like we put more effort into educating the entrepreneurs about what it means to have a board. So I think actually, I'm not saying they should have done an accelerator, but I'm saying that they probably didn't understand the board dynamics well enough. So for example, there's a phrase called stacking your board, right? Which is basically saying that when you have a party, you may want to invite your friends, not your enemies. Very simply put, right? And I think the tension was that some entrepreneurs or in Africa in general, investing, risk capital is so hard to get that you often just rush and get the capital and not understand who is actually involved. They may be all well and good, but you have to choose who's going to be in your board. It's early in VC space in Africa, right? And so if you look at the mature, let's say Sequoia or like any of these big, Andreessen Horowitz, if you're launching a startup and you got a term sheet from Sequoia or Andreessen Horowitz, and you were told that Ben Horowitz or Andreessen was going to be on your board, you'd be like, whoa, like you should actually value that board position more than you would the money. I don't think that is quite yet there, right? So what I'm saying is that it's very early. Even I only sit technically on like 2 or 3 boards, but I'm not exercising those board positions. I don't influence the company through the board, right? I influence the most through the accelerator. But when we, for some South African companies, like when we invest in South African companies, in Cape Town, and we've done 3. The board is quite locally based, and the governance is quite locally central. I just show up and say, hey, when you guys come to Kenya or Tanzania, I can help out. But I don't have a board seat, and I don't have much influence. But it may be in the future if we could follow and invest, and as part of the investment, we're taking them to East Africa. Maybe I might take a board seat. But I only ask to be on the board if I'm required. I think with Angani, I don't think Fariz, Brian, and Riaz really understood the dynamics between having Eric from Savannah Fund and Miguel from Investor Development on the board. So, like, I've talked to startups now who look at that and say, like, I'm simulating myself what happens if I split with, because in the end, Riaz and Fariz basically split, and that then caused divisions. And it's a 5-person board for a reason, so you're gonna have to take sides. People took sides for whatever reason they had to take. I don't know enough about the company. You should really ask Eric more about what his side of the story. But essentially, the board was stacked against Fariz and Brian.
But look,
who are the founders?
So we heard today some people from institutional players talking about how fundamentally, at a very basic level, all the world's best fintech startups, the last thing they want is to be acquired, or the last thing they want is to be controlled, or their sort of entrepreneurial sense and their sense of innovation and excitement and their power usurped. How much of that is at play in the African startups you've observed, and how much of that was at play in the Angani case?
So I can't comment because, again, Eric is on the board. I'm not, right? But I think you have to take investor relations seriously. You have to take investor relations seriously. So if you're going to take money from any corporate VC or any VC, you should ask who's going to be on the board and do I like that person? And what are the chances of them leaving or changing their mind about how they feel about the company? Like, you have to really... The problem is that there's not enough choice in getting private equity investment or venture capital investment in Africa for people to be able to say, okay, we have 5 term sheets from 5 investors in Africa, and we're going to pick, and 2 or 3 of them are like the same price, and 2 of them have really weird board members we don't really want to work with. We don't like them. We didn't get a good vibe. I mean, this is like a of the show, right? What happens when that guy dies? The eccentric billionaire guy dies, and then the new board member comes on board, like the woman. Remember, So like that didn't happen with Angani, but I'm saying that there isn't enough choice for entrepreneurs to decide. Look, we gel with this firm well. I think so. The one thing about Angani as well is that Fariz and Riaz were close to Eric for obvious, and so that made it easy for Eric to help connect them to investor development.
And in your view, this is just normal course of business. This is nothing to worry about. This happens all the time in a healthy startup ecosystem. It should actually be expected.
Yeah, it should be expected. I just think that we did a VC course. We brought Knife Capital and University of Cape Town to South Africa, to Kenya, and Farid was actually in that class for a little bit. And no, you have to understand who's on your board. Like, even I have to decide with Savannah Fund at some point when I grow up. So I'm still like not grown up as a VC. I'm still, my investors who invested in me in the first fund are Dave McClure, Tim Draper, a bunch of family offices. They trust me, right? And they don't need me to be. And the fund is low in size, so I can innovate and try stuff. AfriCoin, like, that's something we came up with, But I think many startups they don't need a board too early. Like, it may constrain them. So just like the same thing as selling too early, right? So I think startups in the seed round shouldn't form serious boards. That's the conclusion that I would say. Because Angani was doing well, and the founder disputes could have been resolved without a board, I think.
Okay, and so moving on now.
Governance is really, really a big issue at play here. And actually, South Africa has the 3 investments we made in South Africa have shown excellent governance. It's very much, I get literally end of the month, I get a nice email with all the stats, metrics. It's much harder to get those in other parts of Africa, actually. They see boards as like formalities that we just have to know. But here they're taken seriously, right? People actually, have
Actual minutes and stuff.
minutes. And, it helps if you do it in a wine farm or make it nice. But they take them seriously. They're like serious. It actually is surprising because, in Kenya, you'll see banks publish the financial statements in the paper, which I'm like, whoa, that's amazing governance. But you don't see in startups like the translation of like, do you produce? For example, Malaika, who's one of my associate return principal, she joined Sendi as a COO. And also Meshach of Sendi also was on the VC course, and they get it. Like they understand the issues around the board, and they had to form a board with Safaricom investing because they wouldn't invest with right. But they thought through exactly what that is. I just think that with the Angani case, that just wasn't thought through very well. And also it's also kind of also Savannah Fund's fault a little bit. Because I requested that Eric be on the board of Angani because Eric knows Fariz and I said that would be awesome because they get along and
It's your fault. It is all your fault, sir.
I would say no. It's
I'm messing with you, really.
it's a good question. So this is interesting because I checked in with Angani now and then, and things seem to be doing well, right? I noticed a little bit of tension between the two founders. As in Riaz and Fariz,
But that's not uncommon.
not uncommon. It's just that the board mess ended up, and I just don't know enough about what happened because I'm not on the board.
One question: don't you think there should have been some leadership from the board, like Eric?
So to be honest, first of all, we have to ask who put in the most money into that deal. And it wasn't really Savannah Fund. It was investment development. So I think if the leadership, it should come from them. So you should try and get hold of Miguel and ask him what actually happened because, but also Eric's put in a tight spot because he is trying to play the sort of ecosystem player because he's trying to connect investment development into Kenya. I don't play that role. As I said earlier, I don't try and I try and reduce my exposure to be the so you're around Kenya, Nairobi, tech scene. I try to do my job investing. And so I think, and also Eric also runs Brick, which investment development I've also invested in.
So do you know?
You can figure out, it's hard for Eric.
So let's talk let's speak to the point that you just raised now.
I just think it's hard for Eric because he's doing that. And, you should ask the person who holds the most influence is typically the investor with the most money. And actually, underlying this is actually who's on the ground. You should ask, did investor development have someone on the ground? Did they sense these issues? Did they resolve, why did they back Riaz over Fariz? So that's for them to answer, because in the end, they are the one that orchestrated everything, I think.
And you know what? Let's speak to the...
That I know of, because maybe it represents investor development. I don't know.
So...
you should know your linkages with every single... So, if say, you were related to me... And now we're doing this podcast. We might have some weird biases that come up, right? And maybe I actually... So, everyone knows Savannah Fund sponsors and founded AfriCoin. It's very clear, right? I think people, if you look at the Angani deal, they were, interesting links, right? For example, Savannah Fund loves iHub because we can partner with Eric and get good deal flow. And there's a relationship between Savannah Fund and iHub. I think Investor Development has a relationship with Eric because they also invested in Brick. Right? And that's great because investment development can also, use Eric to kind of get into other deals. It's a relationship business a lot of the times, right? That's kind of what I think we have to be careful of and disclose some of the links and what it might mean in terms of conflict.
So let's talk about a broader issue.
You don't want to see me fighting with my mother or my dad or my sister in a family businesses.
It's not pretty.
They can end in disaster. Watch Godfather, watch whoever you want to watch, right?
So what about this broader issue that was raised by a lot of bloggers? It just hit, the Twitter sphere, went totally berserk over this notion that investors, greedy Western investors who don't really care or aren't entirely invested in the future and the well-being of Africa's tech ecosystem, swoop in with dodgy profit motives, edge people out, and sort of is that an extreme view that has no basis in this case, do you think?
It's a very extreme view, and I think Eric's post tried to nail it, but I don't think he did it was a good post as far as I was concerned, but it didn't resonate necessarily with everyone. That's what I because I deal with that all the time. And the reason why this comes up is because people sometimes think I'm Kenyan, right? And there are photos of me wearing a Kenyan rugby shirt with like pay kind in Silicon Valley, and but I have invested in 9 Kenyan companies and I've invested in 0 Tanzanian companies, right? So I'm a foreign investor in Kenya, investing in 9 startups. Like, ask I challenge you to find maybe Village Capital can come close to that as being the only other foreign investor in the tech space or in the early stage space who's invested as many companies. Maybe ADA and PH, but my
No, they're just sort of culling their interest slowly. It'll probably have one eventually, maybe by the end.
but they were pioneers early.
I'm messing. I'm just.
But so the reason I say is that people always ask, why aren't more Kenyans investing in Kenya tech, right? When it comes to South Africa, I hear South Africans complain that the VCs are very conservative and blah blah blah, but they do invest eventually, right? In Kenya, there is not many local investors, and so that only leaves foreign investors. And if you scare them away, then it's bad. So one of the things I always talk about is MV2s, right? Have you heard the term MV2s?
No. What are those?
So one of the things that I do a lot in Nairobi is I spend a lot of time outside of the iHub, surprisingly, right?
No.
Yeah. So you'll see me in Westlands, and I'll talk to some rich, Kenyan, and I'll be like, hey, why aren't you investing in tech startups? And, that's MV2s. So MV2s, V2s is things in Swahili. So M things. So M things, M everything, like M Copa, pick your M, and I tweeted this once, like, in Kenya, it's about, investing in the M, insert your vowel, noun,
The M items.
So I noticed something very interesting in Kenya is where, like, some of the wealthier Kenyans who were saying, like, no, we don't want to invest in the MV2s because that's like a foreigner thing. So even they were like thinking, like, no, this is a playground for foreigners to like invest in tech. We don't believe in it. The real investors make money in real estate, which, yes, you do make money in real estate, but it's a long-term play, right? It's like the minute there's an exit, of substantial size in Kenya, people will start to play local ecosystem. And that's what we pray for. Like, that's what we need at some point, right?
And you're saying people need to be appreciative of what interest we have had or what interest we're able to attract, and be fair in understanding that the dynamics of what it takes to get a startup off the ground, especially one the size of, say,
and Angani actually is interesting because I think they actually were doing pretty good, right? And I think they probably might still do pretty good, depending if they can recover from this, fallout.
Do you think that's part of the issue, that we don't have enough sort of huge runaway successes to sort of point to, such that when things like this happen at Angani and others, we just sort of nail.
The ecosystem is very interesting. So you probably all, I think I read it at some blog yesterday that M Copa raised $19 million from Richard Branson, Steve Case, all these foreigners.
There's that M thing again.
M Copa, but M Copa is not a Kenyan startup. M-Pesa is not a Kenyan invention.
Thank you, Vodafone.
Yes. So actually I think the real thing underneath that is that Kenyans are wary that foreigners, not only investors, but also entrepreneurs, come in and take in all the spoils market.
There you go. Listen.
So I am proudly one of we Savannah Fund like to invest in Africans in Africa. So we've only done maybe 2 exceptions, Tony of NS Education and maybe Bainu, or I guess a Zimbabwean living in Australia. But every other company out of 21, so 19, is a local founder. Like Kenyan in Kenya, Ugandan in Uganda, Nigerian in Nigeria, Ghanaian in Ghana, South African in South African. So we think that's very important, and I think it will override any issues we ever see around foreign investment, because we're backing for low. But I think if you look at like the M-Copas and Bridge Academy and all the successes in Kenya, a lot of them are actually foreign founded and have taken foreign capital, and it's much easier to do that. And they can raise a lot of money.
So what advice would you give to foreigners coming in? So you've spoken a lot to. Yeah. So what would you say to people like Eric who haven't entered the market yet but are looking at it and going, I could make a difference in this ecosystem? What are the things to look out for?
Easy, I think. I think you have to find a local partner who can be on the investment team.
Like a partner, not a protege, an actual partner.
And you let them make the mistakes.
Not a token.
It has to be a Kenyan in Kenya or Tanzania in Tanzania that is from that country, knows the ecosystem, and this is the most important part. And you have to give them the business card that says they represent, London FinTech Fund or Silicon Valley Growth Fund or Cape Town, Africa, Pan Africa Fund, whatever that has in a business card, so everyone knows where the money is coming from. But they're local and they're hired and they're on the pay and they live in that country or ideally or in the region. And this is the most important bit, really, really important bit. They need to have a pot of money they can deploy without the central foreign influence, and it can be low. And it can be like, say fintech fund in New York coming into Nairobi has $50 million to play with in Africa, right? They should probably give the guy in Kenya or gal in Kenya maybe $1 million to play with 20 startups over 2-3 years. And blank, you get full disclosure. You make
Carte blanche.
You make mistake, carte blanche. You make mistakes, it's fine. And then from those 20, let's see what you do. And then when we start trying to write like $10 million checks, then you have to like report back up to New York and convince them that this company is worth it.
But then who's doing this though? Who?
Not many of them are doing it. Maybe Acumen Fund a little bit, but there's always like Media. They tend to have centralized investment committees. They have high investment thresholds right when they start, and so because capital requirements are not high, like just get going. So they should use the opportunity to do a seed fund to. And also, the one thing I've heard is that they just don't. Oh, they're scared of Kenya. Like, wait a minute, you invest in Kenya and you're scared of Kenya? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So, if you're gonna come into Kenya, go into Kenya full on.
It's a control thing, right? Surely.
Yeah, but so one of the things that I talk a lot about with the impact investors and other foreign investors is like, you have to, if you're gonna make the ecosystem grow, you also have to make the investors grow locally as well. And so investor training or whatever you call it, we did that with Life Capital. Like that's very, very important. So not only you have to train the investors locally to understand the issues, but also let them make mistakes. So there's actually a phrase I heard once in Silicon Valley where like the cost to train a new VC is like $50 million. Did you know that?
You're speaking in terms of the amount of money, the amount of money he or she would need to make mistakes to the point where they actually make something work.
Yep. So with Savannah Fund, I would say that our first fund has been basically like, what can we learn and do, in Africa, and then when it gets more serious, then I think there'll be more controls. But you have to make those mistakes. There will be mistakes. Angani's, maybe one of many, right? I mean, there's some that you don't hear about, right? Many you don't hear about, and it's also stories of investors losing money. Why is it that when founders get screwed over, apparently, then the big story is made? Why about investors losing money?
Oh, yeah, that's generally because we don't care that someone's got like one less mansion to recline to on the holidays and stuff, I guess.
But you don't think about the fact that when an investor loses money due to corruption or bad governance, that there may not be a follow-on which is Eric's blog, saying that if we start demonizing foreign investors, then they won't come back.
That's fair enough. Fair enough.
These people have a lot of money, but they're also looking for returns. So if they get returns, you get more of that. So it scales, right? So actually, I think, yes, these people can afford to, because risk capital is a very crazy beast in investing. It's very small, right? And it's money that can actually be lost, right? So I don't get my investors coming to me saying, hey, Angani is a total disaster. What the hell happened? Because, and I report it, but they go, so actually when I report my fund to my investors, and it's all good news, something's wrong.
Like what is he not doing right?
We are a risk fund. We're not like save your grandmother's money fund, right?
It's expected. And so what I'm hearing from you,
but so I'm not going to name the company, but we've had out of 21 investments, one investment that the money just disappeared, just ran away, just gone home. This is not Angani or anything. Angani is still around. The company, it's still, we'll see how it goes. But this is a company that and that's something that we don't want to happen ever again. Thank God it only happened once out of 21 times so far in 3 years.
That's pretty good going. And so,
like me reporting that to the auditors in Mauritius, for example, where our fund is, they probably find that also strange because they're not used to startups. So who in the chain understands startups, right? So that's actually one of my least favorite activities to do is to audit. Who likes auditing here? No one, right? But I have to do it as a fund manager, and that's really annoying. But you have to do it. And so we're doing auditing, and basically one company came up and was like, "What about this company?" And I said, come on, guys, this is just next, because this is a complete write-off. Do you want me to write it off now or tomorrow? It doesn't matter. Let's just write it off. And that impacts the fund. But having, and that's the first 400%, it was accelerator investment. Being an investor is tricky, right? It can be tricky.
So let's talk about broader issues in this East African tech ecosystem. Such an interesting place to be at the moment, right?
It is. It is very interesting.
So let's talk about something specific. These mobile operators, right? I mean, West Africa is burning up. East Africa is following suit. Is this a trend?
MTN and Safaricom and just the recent moves with startups or fines or what?
Pretty much. I'm looking. There seems to be a trend, and tell me if you think it's a trend. Is there a trend towards forcing these hugely successful entities to start to account?
So I just think it's a giant chess game that you need to understand how the pieces are moving. So, for example, MTN going to Nigeria and having getting to this position they've gotten to and getting fined shouldn't be a surprise when you think about the fact that it's a South African firm in Nigeria. Like my dad always.
So you are saying there might be a political thing there.
Market issues. So I'm going to bring up something very important. You will see. You probably saw me tweet about this a lot or post it. I teach a non-markets class in Stanford. You know that, right?
Yes, that I'm aware of. Yes,
and it's my
that's your alma mater, correct?
Yeah, it's my favorite thing to do, and when I'm in Silicon Valley, is to walk into this class of like innovators, MBAs who are like, want to like bring Bitcoin to Africa, and guess what? And the last time I brought a Bitcoin Tawanda from Bitfinance was there, and the class is about entrepreneurship in emerging markets, and that particular segment I teach is about non-market issues. So I also worked in aerospace, and aerospace is also very non-markety. Because you have, for example, yesterday I was
Just ask Elon Musk.
Instead of writing the welcome emails for Africoin last night in my hotel room, I was watching Syria vote because I was like, shit, this is going to be big. Like, Britain going to war. This is Britain saying we're going to war. And there's implications there. So I think about investing in the ecosystem in tech in Africa, particularly in fintech, the same way, right? The same way. Like, I think about what has Africa got to lose? What has the government of Nigeria got to lose, right? So this isn't hilarious. And I feel really bad about this. There was a conference on Savannah in Abuja, right? It was actually one where I was going to talk about something really nerdy. I get to be nerdy and talk about like platforms and Xiaomi and how Android and how it's open innovation, and it was all fully paid for. They were even going to give like speaker fees, which I didn't really want, but I was happy to get paid to go, to my accommodation covered, and they had to withdraw that because the Nigerian government were like asking for like back taxes and back rent on the land because the oil price took a dive like 6 months ago, and now they have budget shortfalls in the government, and now they're looking for every single way they can get revenue. The Nigerian government looking for every single way they can get revenue. They have to. Before they weren't as hungry for that. So that is definitely an influence as to what happened with MTN.
And if you're looking from the outside in, you're looking for a sort of straight line between this and that, and there's a million things.
Other issues, for example, like I noticed when I arrived in Lagos recently, and I got my MTN SIM card, I got it very quickly and easily within less than 2 minutes, and it wasn't registered. And the Nigerian government is worried about that. So they worried about Boko Haram, and they worried about what it means to have unregistered SIM cards. So that this is to their credit.
And MTN doesn't care as much, let's be honest.
Yeah, they want to make so you have two sides. You have the government wants to make more government revenue. Maybe they're using this to like extract a massive fine from a big war chest of fund, of MTN. And also they also care deeply about Boko Haram. So they have to really understand who's calling who. And so these issues come up. So let's go to Kenya now, right? So in my first 3 months in Nairobi when I moved there, I did not go and meet them at all, or I did not want to go and see them.
Why?
Because I knew that Safaricom was already like a big. I always work at Microsoft as a product manager for Excel, which is again a dominant software platform. If I'm going to try and build like the Google Docs spreadsheet, I'm not gonna try and work with Microsoft in any way. And that's what I saw when I got to Kenya. I'm like, look, M-Pesa's great, it's amazing. People try and build on top of it, but at the same time, it's very closed. Right? Because I remember when I was a product manager at Microsoft with Excel, how hard it was for startups to try and integrate with Excel, right? It was really, really hard. And when Google Docs came out, that battle was like shaping out very, very crazily. So I take competition, non-market issues very seriously into when I invest in Africa. I don't think it's a surprise. So let's move into like BitPesa and why they're suing Safaricom. We looked at BitPesa, we did not invest, right? We have a policy, again, it's number one policy is like Africans in Africa, which by the way might help you with non-market issues. Surprisingly, right? If I invest in Tawanda in Zimbabwe with Zimbabwean indigenous, he might get a nice wink or favorable thumbs up from a central bank versus like a foreigner coming in. But I'm also a foreigner operating in Kenya, so like I have to be careful work permit issues, So like it's really complicated. You have to think about these things. Like,
So why didn't you invest in BitPesa?
we didn't invest in BitPesa. The first reason I mentioned is like because it was not a local founder, which we believe is important when you have no market issues with the local country.
And you think that factor played into the troubles they're having with Safaricom? What about Lipasha?
So Lipisha, actually we accepted in the first accelerator, so I know them both, those companies. So I think with Lipisha, I think it's just the fact that they're picking on Lipisha, Burundi to get to, because of course Lipisha was the majority business was going through BitPesa, right? BitPesa was the biggest client.
But what do you make of a company like Safaricom being in a position to do that on the issues? I mean, this is also following what a judge in Uganda just ruling against MTN, essentially malicious activity, anti-competitive activity. Is there no? Would you say that there is a fundamentally problematic issue with bullying tactics when it comes to mobile operators in East-West Africa, perhaps even further down the equator?
They're trying to thrive. They understand disruption is coming, right, in their space, whether it's Bitcoin in mobile money or whether it's like other issues, or WhatsApp, for example, right? They're probably, I think WhatsApp was a really big event when they got acquired by Facebook.
Shame here at Vodacom and Cell Cs and even MTN is going, regulate them, poor guys. Shame.
By the way, I actually think that Vodacom here is probably overcharging me on my data.
Can I just confirm that they are? Well, let me just take that back. I want to get sued. They totally are.
Because I was in South Africa last in September, and I bought I think 3 gig for like what 200 rand or something like that, to 300 rand.
That would be a lot of data for that much money. You probably got charged a whole lot more. $200 for 3 gigs?
Something like that, right? Yeah, but that's enough for a week for me to like do my, and I did it, right? But this time around I've spent way more. Like it's the same device. It's an iPhone.
I don't know. What can I say?
And I'm also in Wi-Fi half the time as well, like here, like in Apple Code, right? So anyway, so I think that these mobile operators are reacting in weird ways to innovation from startups, and I think they're also at the same time trying to build up their innovation strategy around hubs and funds. So take Safaricom with their new fund. So like as much as I think Safaricom can be a bully, they also are trying, right, with their fund, and with the Sendi deal, which is actually the proudest Kenyan deal that I've done, I think, is because Safaricom is there, and that was their first investment out of their fund, which we could see coming up, right? So it's like in venture capital, you want to have a good network of people with you. So like here in Apple Code, like I it's great to meet like the RMI guys, Barclays, Warren, because and I get a Joburg like feel. I've done that in Cape Town. I know like Knife Capital, Justin Sanford. I know the InventFin guys. You have to know your investors, and if it's corporate, it's even more important. So Safaricom, I think, have been playing. It's like one hand doesn't know what the other one's doing, right? So like Safaricom is a big corporate, and M-Pesa does one thing, the corporate venture capital side does another thing, and they don't necessarily communicate. So for example, one of my questions I always ask like Ascendi is like, how much is Safaricom helping? In every single way, right? Are they helping you? Are they helping you with work permits if you're a foreigner like Malaika? Are they helping you with M-Pesa integration? Can you fast track the what are they doing to help? Are they helping you with like distribution?
Or is it just token investment to try and look good?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I don't know yet. But like in South Africa, it's more serious for sure. Like the people I meet here who are doing corporate investment, like InventFin from Repco, is more serious. I think Barclays and obviously RMI is more serious. You just see Dominique like on the panel, like she talks the talk, is serious about fintech. But in Kenya with Safaricom, they still don't understand what it means to be. For example,
there's an us in them, definitely.
So Safaricom, like if you buy a company like Kopo, that would be like a very positive move. They're like, oh, but that would be balance sheet issues and weirdness. I'm like, but you said you asked me how can you do to improve? I told you buy a company. Google Ventures buys and they invest, right?
That's right.
So if you want to be like Google Ventures, which is the gold standard of corporate venture capital, you have to like do both. So the other thing as well, which came up today in today's AfriCoin, is that not every telco or bank has an M&A corporate dev division.
Wow.
You need a team that has blanket trained and experience to go around working with startups. And they are basically able to tell you, look, I represent Safaricom or MTN, and we are looking at investing in a company or acquiring it. Let's talk. And dedicated team. It can't be like a one-off thing that happens or a CSR thing. So they came up today, like, should you sell out to or buy? It is, it's hard, like, but it's not mature yet in Africa, right?
Can I talk about something that came up in actually a question that I asked at Africoin earlier on? All this buzz around Bitcoin and the blockchain, and I did.
Just like last year, we had noise. Someone thought it was like Tron. They're like, "This is not Tron." They said, "Bitcoin."
Did you just say I made a lot of noise? Is that what you said?
Yeah. No, we. So I actually, with I like Africoin so much because we always position the Bitcoin panel nicely in the middle after lunch, so like gets energy's pumping, and everyone's arrived, and so
I was the firelighter today.
Bitpesa was in the first Africoin panel in 2013. And it was similar. And then we had BitX and a bunch of others in Cape Town, and it was similar. And this time around, we have banks in the room, and it's still similar.
So can I ask you what I asked? What my issue was. So you had all these players. You had institutional players. You had some startup founders for these platforms, all sort of creating applications, Bitcoin applications, snazzy things, all sort of saying that Bitcoin is the future, the blockchain is the future, talking... my question basically was, show me how everything you're talking about isn't just another layer of fat over the problems that the developing world is having in creating an inclusive environment for the poorest of the poor. Show me how Bitcoin answers that question, and tell me how the gradual adoption of this technology by incumbents we already don't trust is somehow going to make anything better for anybody on planet Earth.
So this, I think after a while, after I heard you speak and we chatted a little bit afterwards, I understood your question quite well. Finance is this like, I think at the heart of it is like, are there stonemason people out there that control the economy globally or in Africa? I don't know.
I'd say yes, but carry on.
Yeah, so I think that's the heart of the question.
Did you really say you don't know? Come on.
No, like, is Bitcoin just another tool to? Is Bitcoin helping or making that worse? Problem worse. Is it democratizing finance, or is it making it, like, I think for a developer who's a geeky and has played with the protocol, they would say absolutely helps you jump on and build a fintech product. But you still operate in a world where central banks exist, Safaricoms exist, non-market issues exist, right? And that's actually why we chose Zimbabwe with Bitpesa, so with Bitfinance over Bitpesa in Kenya. That was actually a choice that we actually made at Savannah Fund. I'm saying this now. We actually, in the Stanford case study that's going to be made public, available over it, we made that choice. And the students have to decide. Yeah, and basically we say that we think that Kenya is very, very crowded, and Safaricom is very, very weird in how they operate. And they're very defensive of M-Pesa. And although Elizabeth and her team at Bitpesa are awesome, we just don't think that's a great... We could be wrong, and I'm fully fine about being wrong, but we just thought it was more interesting to explore a local founder in Zimbabwe where there's chaos in the financial ecosystem, 7 currencies, which you heard today. And so that's kind of how I look at it. I don't think... I think the fact that Bitpesa is trying to sue Safaricom shows that if Bitcoin wins, it could threaten M-Pesa and undercut them, right? So, for example, I bring this up a lot. The fact that in Tanzania we have 3 or 4 more money players competing, and it's half the fees. Remember, I'm Tanzanian, so I use more money too, but and it's half the fees to move money around. Whilst in Kenya, you have a monopolist, and the fees are more expensive. Why is that? It's structure of the industry, right? And so I think Bitcoin offers like another alternative to put pressure on fees, which also I think helps keep them on their toes, innovate, and be more inclusive. So I think the other part of your question is also like, I think you mentioned that accessism does not equal
inclusion.
I also agree. Like, when I walk into a bar in Cape Town as a black person and it's all white, like, I can access it, it's there, and I can walk in, but it doesn't mean it's inclusive when I'm in the club. I totally understand that aspect. And I also think even venture capital what I do can also be included. There are many things in life where there's a club-like environment, right? And I think that there is an element of that for sure. Like, so I actually was really interested in doing African and Joburg because I was like, actually, this is the Wall Street of Africa. Like Sandton, this area here, Sandton, is the Wall Street of, and there's so much financial power in here, and so I was super interested to bring it here and see what people. But it would seem to be pretty interesting, right? Like,
and no one answered the question. For the record, no one really answered the question, and so.
So I get very nervous about people that back to your question more deeply. I am suspect of the World Bank. I'm suspect of like the new BRICS Bank. Those are people where I'm like, okay, they maybe hold way more. So I was talking to Tawanda earlier about like and Vusi, both from Zimbabwe. Right? I was like, but I heard the World Bank just gave you guys like a thumbs up on like repayment. So they said no. We negotiated that they would repay some loans, which might open us up to borrowing more. Right? When you look at Magufuli in Tanzania, right? What will Magufuli do? Is he doing this austerity madness? Like, you're not allowed to. The government's not allowed to send Christmas cards. Apparently, that was the latest thing.
Are you serious?
No. Independence Day, you also have to make sure no parties just work in your garden. But I'm certain that
eat a carrot.
I'm certain that he's doing that because he knows that if he shows austerity, he'll get massive loans from the World Bank to be able to do what he wants to do. So I think Zimbabwe, from what I got from Tawanda and Vusi, is that the World Bank is interested in talking to them, but only if they start paying back their loans, and that's another kind of like carrot stick weird thing.
And I mean, the other side of my question was, let's be honest, where's the computing power, the world's computing power concentrated? It's in the same countries that essentially run the legacy systems that have failed us and are backed by the very people who got us into crisis, in the last 2 decades. So how does Bitcoin, how do applications around the blockchain help address that? And for me, it's yeah.
So it's actually a standards thing, right? So this is something that I actually find fascinating, right? So I remember the days of VHS and Betamax. And then also, I was a big minidisc fan. I don't know if you remember the minidiscs.
No, I don't.
Yeah, like
that's how forgettable it was. No, I do, but that's how forgettable it was.
Betamax was Sony, and minidisc was Sony. The compact disc was more open, right? VHS was, I think, more open. I think, yeah. And so we have the same thing happening in fintech now. Like, is M-Pesa, is M-Pesa Blu-ray? So Blu-ray is the latest Sony thing, right? But actually
closed as anything, and yes, M-Pesa would be Blu-ray.
Yeah. And so you have to ask the question. So I think that's why I want to plug in Stella, right? Which is, I think I mentioned earlier, right?
You did. You mentioned it in a competition in our conversation earlier.
And because the last time I was at Stella was really hilarious. In Silicon Valley, I walked into their office. And there's a power cut I'd never seen a power cut in Silicon Valley before, like in San Francisco. And I was like, I walked in, the African, I brought power cuts. And engineers were complaining that, oh no, like I got 3 hours power on my Mac. I can't I'm like, and Joyce, the, executive director was like, you have 3 hours of power. Like the power will be back in an hour. Like, and you're like, and so he said, that's it. You have to go and deploy, you have to go and spend time in Africa. So Stellar is actually an interesting cryptocurrency protocol and network that's trying to be, I think they're trying, maybe Joyce and Jed will say I'm saying this wrong, but I think they're trying to be the Wikipedia of cryptocurrency, right? So they're trying to, and they've structured their company so that it's very clear who owns what and who benefits from what. Because I think I talked to you earlier, like with Bitcoin, we don't know who owns the Bitcoins. We don't know, all this Bitcoin spreading and promotion by folks on the startups. Are they just trying to get Bitcoins in more hands of more people, which then brings the price up?
They're just trying to get us all on board. They want us to be enthusiastic about basically, they're trying to get us all to assign value, essentially.
So Stellar takes that away completely.
So where would we be in a world where Stellar wins?
I think it's the same world where Wikipedia wins. Where when you search for something, who's the president of South Africa, or you type in Nelson Mandela, you get the first couple of links, you get and it's a crowd-funded or it's a crowdsourced information. So I think with Stellar, we come to a way with zero fees, there's zero who's benefiting from what, very clearly. Yeah, the mining pools are very clearly defined who's making money off what. Yeah,
I suppose I really shouldn't go as far as this, but I mean, it's a complicated thing because, I mean, we need to go as far as, look, if we go as far as, again, looking at this locus of control issue, there are places in the world where electricity, basics, like, will I die of malaria this year? You know what I mean? How pertinent to someone who's living with that basic fundamental is what we're calling the next wave of freedom and access.
So we talked about this as well. Like, so I'm skeptical, even more skeptical than you are when it comes to the philanthropists, right? We talked about this a little bit.
Oh yeah, that's even worse. Yeah.
So like, I think they're great. They've done great work, like Bill Gates or Zuckerberg.
Of course, like he's giving away all 99% of his wealth. We love him, right?
So again, like, just like any non-market issue, like, you should be asking questions when, like, a media network's investing in Paga, right? Are they laying the groundwork for eBay to come in?
Flippinginternet.org.
Have you looked at, and actually Sarah Lacey of Pandaily has written about this quite extensively with India. I've gone Modi, I think, was involved in a media network, I think, look up the facts. And as soon as Modi became president, didn't they lift all the foreign e-commerce barriers?
Oh my word!
Oh, non-markets. Oh no, not markets. It's life.
I have a lecture on such things.
Yeah. It's but the thing is, it's like people are self-interested, right? And you could hide behind the like financial inclusion narrative, and it will help.
Internet is a right for all.
Yeah. So I when I went to India, I was like shocked actually. I went to India for medical tourism with family. Apparently that's a thing, which I guess it is. But I went to a e-commerce site. I forgot the name of it. What's the biggest one in India called again?
Oh yeah, the Amazon. No, not Alibaba. They're an Amazon competitor.
Forgot the name of it. But so I was looking for a Xiaomi phone because back then I was like, whoa, Xiaomi! I want a Xiaomi phone, and I kept seeing the Xiaomi phones low rated. So I mean, if you Google on Amazon or search on Amazon an iPhone, it's probably going to be like highly rated. Like it's not going to be 1 star. Like, oh, this phone sucks. Like, no. So I saw all the Xiaomi phones on the site. What's it called again? We need to find out. Like
I'm checking. I'm on Google. Amazon's biggest competitor, Flipkart. Yeah.
And so I read the comments of why they're rated 1. Just like when you look at a hotel and you say, why is this hotel like 2 stars, 1 star? And someone says, this hotel is terrible because it's on a hill and I'm fat and I can't walk up the hill. That's obviously not a good way to rate a hotel. So I found the same thing with Xiaomi. They said people were saying we're downrate. We don't want to buy anything from Snapdeal. It's what's it called again?
Flipkart.
Because they are supporting internet.org. They allow you to browse. We can't compete. So it must have been like people who wanted to support Indian e-commerce startups that were not deal with Facebook. And so I was like, that's when I was like, wow, in Africa we're so behind on this. When internet.org adds like adds an OLX, which they do, right?
Oh my word!
Have you thought about what? And OLX is not a charity. It's not Wikipedia. It's not. Yeah, put Wikipedia on internet.org and Free Basics because that's a non-profit. But if you put OLX on there, that's not like a charity. Zero. So that's the issue.
No, that's helping nomads in the Sahara sell their camels and stuff. Come on, guys, what's wrong with you?
200, NASPERS owns it. Like, it has local competitors. Exactly, yeah.
No, I'm being seriously tongue in cheek.
So I think internet.org's biggest battleground in Africa will be Tanzania. Actually,
are you guys feisty like that?
No, we're not. But I think it's because Tigo is doing so well there.
Ah, I see.
Whilst so for example, in Kenya, Airtel is what of course Safaricom is the dominant one. So actually, Safaricom would never let. I don't think they would.
Actually, I find your honesty with regards to these issues quite refreshing. And
non-market issues. It's something that I grew up in with working in the aerospace industry. It's something that, like we mentioned before, is there a guy in the cigar room in Andersanton who controls all of Africa's finance, or is it Washington, or is it? Is laughing at us, being like, "Oh,
Grayston Drive, running the continent."
Some of them are very obvious if you look deep enough. Like when you see this, the Flipkart thing, when some of them are also very obvious when you look at the structure of the industry in Safaricom and they play in. Some of them are very obvious when you look at like banking and how it works,
or infrastructure, and look at the rollout of this whole digital, the whole analog to digital thing. I mean, it's pretty much Korea's got that on lock.
Yeah, and so the thing is, like, this is actually quite easy. Like, take all that and make it influence your strategy as whoever you're doing. So Savannah Fund actually has lots of foreign investors, but we try and brand ourselves as the Africans in Africa. So back to why did we not invest in BidPesa? And not only BidPesa, it's hundreds of others. I get them all the time. I'm a Finnish company coming to Africa. I'm a British company coming to Africa. I get tons of them.
Are you enough now?
We just don't do it. It's a decision we made as a fund. We like as Savannah Fund, we fund locals in Africa because we think the next Jack Ma will be African.
Probably. And therefore, you've been sitting here for a while now.
The of Africa should be African. And if that happens, that person probably will invest in their own, and we want to be that part of that change. But unfortunately, this is kind of where like people bust my bubble is that Africa is full of stories of foreigners exploiting Africa. So one of the things that I do a lot as a venture capitalist, which I've been advised by some mentors, is to read history. Right? So I've been reading history of Africa. So every country I go to, I read the history. Zimbabwe, South Africa, and you always have these issues. Like, so I actually was quite depressed recently because I read this book, History of Africa. It was The Fortunes of Africa, right? About the economic, growth of Africa, for thousands of years. And I realized that for the first, chapter of Africa, it was all about slaves, gold, and ivory.
That's all anyone cared about.
I want to take you back to the Bitcoin issue. And
I want to be part of the change that goes to reversing that and allowing Africans to benefit from Africa and own. And so that is, so actually the end game for Savannah Fund is maybe our Fund 3 is we have local LPs, pension funds, then it's so money. So when a Westgate happens, or when a Safaricom or a central bank is assessing like whether they should sue BidPesa or not, or whatever is what's going on, those things are factored in, right? Because ultimately, look at Donald Trump. He's probably doing well because he's so American, trying to be so Americanized, right? Because
absolutely.
No Syrians, no less, no that, no Mexicans,
and he's driving.
So it's like I think ultimately in Africa, that's what needs to happen is that we need to move to a model where Africans are investing in Africa. But it takes a while to get there. Sorry.
No. But we demonize people who want to do that. But we'll get to that one day. I want to take you back to Bitcoin. I've seen there's examples of Forex. So if you're doing remittances from the US and transferring money and you want to send money to Zimbabwe, for example, they'll send US dollar, exchange it into Bitcoin, and it gets sent to the person in Zimbabwe in Bitcoin, and obviously it gets changed back to what my question is mainly what's stopping. I mean, it's very easy. This is tech. It's software. What's stopping any African developer to come up with Bitcoin or blockchain-related solutions? Not only on the fintech side, but also on the identity side or anything like that. It's just software.
That's actually an interesting question. Actually, it's talent. The only place where I've seen strong enough blockchain talent is actually Stellenbosch, Fire ID plus talent. I've not seen it anywhere else. The Bitsoko, who are speaking at Africoin, I think tomorrow. Maybe one in Kenya I've come across where I literally was walking around the University of Kenyatta and I was like, whoa! And the professor was like, this guy received $100,000 from Bill Gates Foundation. And I was like, whoa, that's cool. So there's funding going into development of that. But, we've also seen blockchain or Bitcoin academies or schools. I've been seeing a lot of that in South Africa. That's great. Alpha Code maybe is going to be helping with that. I don't know. But ultimately, I think it's a matter of like you have to understand the tech. And it's also it's very cutting edge. And a lot of it's controlled, as you mentioned, not necessarily on our soil.
See, this brings me back to the same issues around access and inclusion. And
so by the way, this is kind of like really hilarious because people always ask me, "Is Africoin a real currency?" I'm like,
"No, it's not." That would be an event, folks.
But if I was to do that, which I might, I would have to go away for a long time, maybe like 3 weeks, or maybe even I don't know. It's a lot of effort.
Would you create your own blockchain and then what would you do?
Yeah, I mean, people were asking, is Africoin like, the currency? But you know how all these things, all these things are kind of a joke, right? So by the way, like, so Weebly is my joke, where I create joke sites. So African was one of those. Like, we're discussing, like, you know, with some friends about Bitcoin, and someone said, yeah, someone said, hey, what about Africa's own cryptocurrency? And then Africoin. And so I was like, oh, that's so cool. So I went to Weebly, bought, you know, but then of course I was like, I need a fintech event. I'll use Africoin. The other one is actually Bank of Mbwana.
Bank of Mbwana.
Bank of Mbwana, that's my latest one. And that was after a Zim trip, actually.
Wow.
So a Zim trip, I noticed that obviously they use dollars there. And I also know from Tanzania that the different rates for different dollar denominations and how clean it is. You know that, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and so I was like, and so literally in Zim, I was trying to pay some bills with the dirtiest dollars I had and keep the cleanest. So when I go back to Tanzania, I can use my clean dollars to exchange into local currency. And I was like, whoa, maybe I should create Bank of Mbwana where I just clean bills. Because people are telling me, like, hey, like, why don't you just clean them up? Like, I'm like, you know, like, I'm like, and of course, the reason why the bills are dirty is because there's no central, the bills are printed in Washington or whatever in the U.S. They're not printed here. And so if they're in the Simpson for too long, they get dirty. And so I created this joke site. You can go on it. Look at it on here. bankofmbwana.com. Mbwana with a B, because, you know. And basically what we do is we take your dirty old dollar bills and turn them into Bitcoin. Yeah, and so, like, you know, maybe one day I will, you know, create something out of it. But, yeah, bankofmbwana.com. So, no M. So, because no Mbwana means Mr. Bank of Mr. or Master. Because all the Kenya, yeah, in Swahili. So, which is one of my biggest pain points. People always like to don't like to call me Mbwana because they think they're saying that. Yeah, it is.
It's Mbwana Bank.
Yeah, Mbwana. Oh, yeah, okay. But it's called Bank of Mbwana.
Dude, that looks legit right there.
And look at the bottom.
Bank of Mbwana is not registered as a financial entity anyway or in any country. It's supported by Africoin.org.
Look at it. Trade in your. This is a picture of me separating my old bills. Clean is there. These are like dirty, you know.
Dude, so how much have you made, man?
Like, no. I got people emailing me saying like, hey, like, yeah, I want to use this system, or like, this is not legal. You know, all the different questions. But yeah, that's why I put in this afterwards. I said, we're not a financial institution.
Can we keep it as a joke so you stay out of jail, please?
Yeah. So sign up. What does sign up actually do? I think it launches like a very simple. What is it? Oh, it's email trade.
Oh, so all you got to do, folks, is trade at mbwanabank.com. You're so going to jail if you make this real.
Yeah.
You'll get the FBI all up in your business, sir.
Yeah, but I mean, it's back to the question about like, you know, but that's one example.
No, but it's brilliant, and it's a great
It's an African problem. I mean, dirty money, or dirty as in literally dirty dollars, is a problem, and cleaning them up.
There's always who's gonna hold the last $1 dirtiest note that's gonna fall apart in half? Someone's gonna hold it.
Not me.
Back to you. It's not gonna be the richest person in Africa. It's gonna be the poorest person in Africa who has that.
Oh.
Because remember, how do I get these dirty notes? I get them when I buy some fruit in the street, or
Change in the minibus taxi.
and I get these dirty notes. And so, like, this was like a really frustrating thing. I was like, I can't believe it. Like, there's all these dirty notes that are being traded because Zimbabwe has no currency, and so that the dollars constantly be going through. But then I can't, you know, in Tanzania being snobbish, the Bureau de Change don't want to trade any old notes. So like that also makes it hard for the Tanzanian who's poor, as you know. So why don't you just turn it on to Bitcoin and then like they can do something else with that?
Sure.
Financial inclusion with Bitcoin.
Okay. You wanted to challenge my thinking around financial inclusion and access.
On Bitcoin, I mean, he's just given the answer in terms of a lack of talent, and the talent, for example, in South Africa is focused in Stellenbosch or the Western Cape. So given that it's focused there in the demographics of Stellenbosch, it's highly unlikely that you're going to get solutions developed out of Stellenbosch for poor Africans to include them into using technologies like Bitcoin to their benefit.
Oh, good. So you're kind of supporting the notion that, look, I suppose and this is me. Someone after my question pulled me aside and said, "You sound socialist." I'm like, I'm not socialist. I don't sound socialist.
I'm the biggest socialist here, man. I'm Tanzanian.
So Tefo reckons, please, I'm the socialist who sneaked into.
You somehow didn't detect. We have a socialist a Bank of Mbwana. We filter Africoin. make sure that you don't show up to AfriCoin and like.
You just need to add a little line here endorsed by the Zimbabwean socialist living in South Africa, aka Andile Masuku. Yes. So listen, that's pretty much it. Listen,
I enjoyed this. Like this was good. Like this is.
did you say you enjoyed it? You're off mic.
No. I really do enjoy it. Like it was great. It was funny. Like we touched a lot of interesting topics from like, non-markets, indigenous innovation. The big players, small players, foreigners and locals. Like it's, these are the issues that affect Africa Tech right now, right?
And we're loving it. I want to close out with what you'd say, and please don't make reference to anything you're currently invested in because you're obligated. But what would you say is what are you most enthused about as a trend? We're seeing VOD as a huge trend. We're seeing mobile money as a huge trend. We're seeing Bitcoin in terms of fintech. What are you excited about besides Bank of Mbwana?
Logistics is actually quite interesting.
Logistics? Are you talking about like order fulfillment? Are you talking about like sort of what are you talking about?
Yeah, I think anything that gets something from A to B in Africa efficiently is a huge value.
So Udala just sent their first parcel. It was a Nokia phone, apparently. They sent one by drone to some dude. They did that last week. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about, or are you talking about more nuts and bolts?
Logistics is probably one of the underlying themes in Africa Tech that, if solved, will unlock even more things, from e-commerce to back to like making sure that we look after the bottom of the pyramid, like medicines in remote places.
Bananas that come from West Africa through Africa to the southern part of Africa, as opposed to via ships or through Europe.
Logistics is one of the areas where I do think there is a cigar guy who is controlling a monopolist logistics operation and not. So, for example,
based in Singapore, of course.
Yeah. So I actually learned this not recently, like over a while, but how much are ports in Africa hamstrung by the fact that they are people who are sitting on they purposely make you go through storage and rack up the fees. So if you're, say, for example, shipping rice or bananas or iPhones or Xiaomi's into Africa, and the person in the port is able to influence how long you stay in the port, and hence they can extract value from that, from rent, and then the final price of that rice, banana, or Xiaomi phone is 20% more because of the inefficiency of the port, because of non-market issues of someone sitting on a bit of storage. They happen to own all the storage around the port, and so they're able to extract a toll.
And let's talk about how Africa is only invested in something like.
This is the same as a police asking for a bribe, actually.
Pretty much, and
because it slows you down. It's down at the bottom level. This is just the trade aspect, the moving things around aspect.
And Nigeria, of course, announcing earlier this year that they're thinking about having drones monitor the airports for that very reason. But let's talk about. Then it's issues like. No, let me not go socialist on this one, because I'm going to go socialist again, and I'll be accused. Yeah,
it's okay. I actually think Africans are programmed in some way to be a little bit socialist. I think. The Chinese act very socialist in the beginning, right? But then they're capitalistic at heart. But I think just the way the continent has developed, you do have a socialist, nationalistic mindset.
And logistics being controlled. The statistics are staggering. Less than 10% of the entire value chain, in the entire sort of shipping business, the maritime business, relating to Africa, having nothing to do with Africa and not benefiting us in any way. How that can't be an issue to some people, I don't know. But I can understand why you'd pick logistics. I know Strive Masiua of Econet, he said he'd be a farmer. You wouldn't farm? You don't think food, agriculture might be a big thing you'd be excited about?
It's big. It's very, very big. Ag is big.
So big that perhaps like him, you might think about, if you were to do all this over, you'd graduate from Stanford and go farm and not start a venture capitalist fund?
I might do an ag fund.
Stay VC though.
So I like venture capital because it's fundamentally allocation resources game. Back to the whole socialist thing.
You're actually controlling the whole thing, really. Is that what you're saying?
Socialism, seen as quote unquote bad. One of the theories is that the system does not allocate capital well, resources well.
And I suppose with minds like yours, you can make it work, I guess.
It's one way to allocate resources into innovation. It's not the only way. There are other players doing it. There's crowdfunding as well, right? And so the crowd can actually speak. But it's just one function, right? An ag fund would be great. But guess what? Back to your whole, like, who's controlling it. So you do see me sometimes in a suit. So I'm only in a suit for two reasons. Weddings and maybe funerals, and raising money at very weird places in the world.
Like Monsanto, if you did an ag fund.
For example, I'll give you an example. So there's a conference that happens in Amsterdam every year, the Emerging Markets Private Equity Conference. And do you know how hard it is for me to get a visa these days to go to Europe?
Really?
Look at me and they say, wait a minute, you're going to Amsterdam, then you're going to like Berlin to see some startups there, then you're going to like to London or something. This is way crazy. Like, you should be doing one thing, or maybe go to the Belgian or the German embassy to get the other visa, because we don't deal with people like you, right? So the biggest thing that annoys me the most about just about how the control thing works is that how much of things go outside of Africa, events outside of Africa. So and actually, I'll give you one really good example to close off. I had this trip planned to Angola because I've never been there before, and it's very hard to get to Angola, as you probably know. And at the same time, I got a White House invitation. It was one of those, do you remember that event 2 summers ago, 2 Julys ago, where all the Africa in Washington event? You must remember that.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yes, actually. Yeah.
So like, people email me like, "Hey, are you going? Are you going?" All these venture capitalists, like the Steve K, all these guys were like going and they're like, "Are you going?" I'm like, "No, I've not been invited. I'm going to Angola, man. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, a week before the event starts, I get an email being like, "You're invited to some event at the White House," and I'm like, and my instinct was like, "Whoa, yeah, this is it. I'm going." And then I said, "No, I'm going to Angola. I'm gonna be in Africa. I'm gonna stay in Africa and do what I'm meant to be doing." And I told my dad this. He was like, "What? Why are you not going to the White House?" I'm like, because actually at the heart of it, we always have to travel outside Africa to do fucking Africa stuff. No.
Enough.
So, and I was actually 100% right. Well, I went to Angola and I learned more about Africa going to Angola than I did by going to the White House.
Wow. And that's a pretty great place to end this little conversation. Dude, I mean, it's been so refreshing.
I still got a lot to the US and other places, but it was just, I had to make a decision, do I take my passport out of the Angola process? The visit took 3 weeks. Or do I go to the US? Or do I just stick on Angola? I said, no, I'm going to stick on Angola. AfriCoin is happening in 3 countries for a reason. I want to do more in Africa for a reason. Like, we should have less things going on in Africa, outside of Africa. That would help a lot.
The Africa CEO Forum in Geneva. Jeez.
See you there, and I'll proudly show you my visa. I got it. I got my visa.
We're here. We're free, boys.
And then also I'll land in Geneva, and I'll be like, so what are you doing here? I'm here for the Africa CIO Forum. Are you sure you're not immigrating here for some other reason?
Are you sure you don't want to stay here? Don't you like snow?
It's Lisbon. In Lisbon, for Portugal, my visa took so long to get. And then I got to Lisbon, Portugal, and I realized that there were poorer people in Lisbon than parts of Africa, That's the bit that really kind of shocks me, is you spend all this time getting to this gold place, and there were actually like marble tiles in Lisbon, right? They have but you see poorer people in Europe now than parts of Africa.
We're good here, guys. We're good. Yeah, anyway. But listen, thank you so much, man. Mbwana, how do you say your surname? Is it Alliy?
Yeah, Alliy.
Alliy. Mbwana Alliy, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. All right, man. Enjoy the rest of your time here in Joburg. Anytime you want to be around, man.
Joburg is good. I'm going to be back here a lot. So Fast is my friend, by the way.
I beg your pardon?
Fast is my friend.
FastJet is your friend. Oh, you're not invested in them?
No. They just get me from Dar es Salaam to Joburg very quickly and efficiently and cheaply.
Oh, that's very nice.
Than any African airline?
Back to the whole control thing. South African Airlines, do you think they probably are upset by FastJet, which have slashed the price of a return flight to Dar es Salaam?
They probably are. But to be honest, they probably have bigger fish to fry at the moment.
$800 return to go normally sometimes, Joburg, Dar es Salaam. Whilst with FastJet, you can get a flight as low as $100 one way, $120 one way.
Sick. That is absolutely sick.
So who's helping VCs scale across Africa more, FastJet or the World Bank?
No. I'd say FastJet.
So like I have my friends. That's why I say FastJet's my friend because they really help me get around. I mean, it's not an endorsement, but it's just like getting around Africa is hard.
Logistics. Back to what you said.
Why do I have AfriCoin in 3 countries? Because I was writing visa letters for Kenyans to come to AfriCoin Cape Town last year. I'm Tanzanian, remember? In Tanzania and South Africa have a special relationship. No visas.
Oh, yeah.
So it was really weird being in Cape Town in this hotel and being like, yes, I would like to invite Ken Jeroge of Cellulant to AfriCoin. Here's my South African number. I am living in Cape Town, or I'm staying in Cape Town. That's very strange. To run a conference on African innovation in fintech. Why that is ridiculous. I have to do that. So I said, no, this year we're going to do 3 locations. So you have to people.
So nobody has to feel that the indignity of feeling like an outsider on their own continent.
And it was pretty funny because I had to like get Ken's wife as well a visa because he wanted to go to Cape Town and shop and tourism and all that. Like, no, I don't want to be doing that. That's not what. It's just one of those things. It's like Africa is challenging to scale. It's
Frustrating. It's
one of the biggest challenges. Like, how do you integrate more? And players like FastJet help. And
let's just hope they survive because I don't know. I don't know too many. I don't know smart money that's investing in airlines. I'm sorry.
That's another question. It is a legitimate concern. Yeah,
we're hoping you stick around, FastJet. Stick around for us because we want to hit Lagos. We want to hit Lagos. We want to hit. Do you know it's funny that we haven't even had a discussion about Dar? I have to be honest about this at all. We were thinking even Accra was sort of
the Miami of Africa.
Dar is the what?
Miami of Africa.
Oh, so we might just because we were thinking Lagos, Cairo.
It's very lots of interesting women there. It's good.
You're not selling this for my wife though, or Tefos.
No.
No, that pretty much. He just made the trip die a natural death.
You should bring them to and go to Zanzibar.
Oh, there you go. He's back in. He's back in. Did you see that? Quick recovery right there. My dude, I'm going to have to switch this thing off because...
By the way, just another FastJet thing. They fly direct now to Zanzibar from here.
Are you serious?
I'm telling you, these guys are innovating on airlines.
Who are these people? Who are these people? No, it is, man.
1,700 rand one way.
120.
And I was like yesterday, will South African Airlines let them?
No, Mango's flies to Zanzibar, yeah.
So no market. Will they let them?
How long will they let them?
The landing license of FastJet was revoked on my first flight to Joburg. So they had to compensate me for free fly and my money back. Because the SA Airlines apparently did some weirdness to block FastJet's first entry. Non-market issue.
All right, my man.
Unless you're president.
of Mbwana land. Of Bank of Mbwana. President of Mbwana Bank, man. Yeah, check it out, mbwanabank.com. That's so sick.